Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of All Things Policy, where we break down the policies that shape everyday life in India. I'm Malathi Renati, and I head the policy school at the Takshashila Institution. And today we are stepping into a debate that is both visceral and deeply political. It has apprehension and compassion in equal measure. It sort of involves the recent Supreme Court's decision about the millions of street dogs that we share our streets with. So to help us unpack this from the ground, I have with me today someone who has spent nearly 2 decades doing what most people only talk about. Samyukta Hornad is not only an acclaimed Kannada actor, but she's equally known for her work off-screen as the founder of Praana Animal Foundation. It's Bangalore's first 24/7 animal ambulance and rescue service. And as the urban wildlife ambassador for PFA, that's a post that she's also held. She's also a member of the Animal Husbandry and Veterinary Services, which is part of the government of Karnataka. And she's been working with rescued and injured animals since the age of 16. In fact, during the COVID pandemic, she personally coordinated feeding hundreds of stray dogs across Bangalore. So, Samyukta, welcome to the All Things Policy podcast. It's really a pleasure having you on our show.
Thank you, Malathi, for having me here and for the wonderful job your podcast is doing, because policy is something that is what can make a difference to a large extent if you follow it correctly. So yeah, thank you for having me here.
Yeah. Thanks, Samyukta, for your time once again. So I'm looking forward to kind of hearing your experiences, but we'll just structure this conversation through the lens of the Samaaj, Sarkaar and Bazaar. That's the society, government and markets. Because, this issue sort of cuts across all three, right? So before we get into the policy weeds, Samyukta, can you tell our listeners, why did you start Praana Animal Foundation and also the work it is involved in since its inception?
Well, I had a pet, a rescued baby. I picked him up from a drain when I was in school. And he passed on. And after that, there was like a serious gap. And so I started rescuing a lot more because this whole attachment I had towards him, I don't think I had the strength to adopt another dog. Mm-hmm. So I got into rescuing, helping, joining all kinds of foundations, CUPA, CARE, name it. I've volunteered as like when I was a 14, 15-year-old in all these shelters because I couldn't, it was a lot when he passed on. But what happened for me is the more I engaged with animals, the more I indulged with them, the more I rescued them. For me, I got rescued. I found help. I found a lot of things there. So I'd made a promise to my late dog that I was going to do something in his name when he passed away. So it actually that's how it started. But because of my COVID work, I became a part of the Animal Husbandry and Veterinary Services, where I saw the huge gap there is, between traveling, commuting when there is an accident or an emergency, especially in a city like Bangalore, there are no ambulance services. By the way, this is true in Bombay, Delhi, anywhere, that by the time an animal reaches the hospital, it's usually declared dead. So I think to bridge that gap, I started only to find out all the major loopholes in the system itself. And there is no monitoring. There's nothing happening, especially with strays. So which is why my ambulance service or my cat rehabilitation center that I run right now is completely free and the only service in India that's 24/7. Because I feel like all of this was man-made, like human civilization brought in these strays. And it's our duty to really care for them because it's something that we brought upon this planet, right? So yeah, I think that's why Praana started. It more out of love and for my heart.
Yeah, wonderful. And I love the story that you shared about how, just that one incident, right, of where, because we all as kids, many of us would have picked up a stray pup, and then wanted to kind of adopt it, and then at home folks would have said, hey, I think there's too much of responsibility, all that. Then the fact that one incident has turned into the Praana Foundation, I think it's wonderful.
Anything I do is for him. He was my first son, my first love, my only friend, all of these things. So a lot of things I do is for him. Yeah.
Thanks, Samyukta. That's wonderful. So just to give our listeners context on the recent Supreme Court decisions, right, broadly around which we wanted to just discuss and get more inputs on. I'll just sort of share some data points, Samyukta, okay, on that, and then maybe we can go into the society's role. I'd like to hear from you as well. So I believe it's not very accurate now, but India has somewhere between 15 to 60 million stray dogs. So that's a huge range, right? Some data says 15, some say up to 60. So it also means that it's home to the largest population of strays in the world. Right? So for years, the policy response has been broadly around the Animal Birth Control Program, that's also known as the ABC program. Largely that is surrounds catching the dog, neutering, vaccinating, and releasing the dogs back to where they were found. So it's also known as the CNVR globally. That's the acronym they give for it. So the idea here was to strike a balance between public safety and animal welfare, right? But that balance sort of cracked open in July last year, 2025, when we had a 6-year-old girl in Delhi who died from rabies following a stray dog attack. And that's when the Supreme Court stepped in. So around just a month later, in August 2025, the bench ordered the municipal authorities to round up all stray dogs in Delhi and surrounding areas. That's roughly 1 million dogs or 1 million animals in Delhi, and house them permanently in shelters. I mean, that seems like an impossible task because you don't have adequate shelters to begin with. But 10 days later, the largely 3-judge bench sort of pulled back and called that order too harsh and impossible to comply with, and reverted to directing compliance with the ABC rules again. Right? This was in August, a month later. Then came the compliance problem. So we see a lot of back and forth where the court too has been taking decisions and turning around and coming up with something different. So the compliance problem that occurred, and the court asked all 28 states to file status reports by October 2025, which is like just in a couple of months since that incident, but only 2 did out of the 28 states. Because naturally, there's no data that's really being captured, in a systematic way. So then in November, the court issued sharper directions. They said remove dogs from schools, hospitals, any transportation hubs, and replace casual street feeding, which has sort of come in at that point, with designated feeding zones in every municipal ward. So we see that also that was passed even in Bangalore, and then we saw identified zones where they could feed. But again, what followed was months of states just dragging their feet, animal welfare groups and resident welfare associations at loggerheads, and the court again visibly frustrated with the gap between its orders and the ground reality. And that's the problem we always have, right? Implementation.
Right.
So that brings us to May 2026, that's last month, when the Supreme Court delivered what is arguably its most consequential ruling on this issue. It held that the right to walk through a public space without fear of a dog attack is a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution. So at this point in time, we're saying as humans, the fundamental right is that safety is important. So it permitted conditional euthanization for rabid or demonstrably aggressive dogs, banned the release of dogs near schools, hospitals, even post-vaccination they were banned. And it mandated the ABC centers in every district to kind of and sort of put a legal liability on animal welfare groups that fed strays in public institutions. Right. So the question here, and we're going to deal with the Sarkaar section a little later, but the question for the Sarkaar would be more looking at does this judgment actually resolve the stray dog problem, or does it sort of paper over a deeper failure of urban governance and civic infrastructure? Because we know that poor waste management, as illegal breeding, all these things contribute to the increase in the dog population. So again, starting with the Samaaj, Samyukta, because this debate is it's at the heart of the Samaaj, it's at the heart of the society. We have different communities, right? We have the dog bite victims, many of them children and elderly. And then you have the animal caregivers, those of us who feed and we want to kind of, give the dogs, sterilize the dogs. So, but we also know that dog bite cases, and I'm not talking about deaths from dog bites, but dog bite cases, it's gone up from 22 lakhs in 2022 to over 37 lakhs in 2024. So in the 2 years, there's a 70% jump in those numbers. So, Samyukta, these are numbers, these are data, and again, data is not always accurate. But on the other side, we also know the story of cruelty, right? We have mass poisoning drives, we have dogs being beaten up, welfare organizations being attacked for feeding strays. So, how do you hold both, right? From your experiences over the last year or so, especially, because we're seeing a lot of that in Bangalore as well. We're seeing a lot of pushback. At the same time, we're seeing, a lot of stories in the media as well about dogs and what they're doing.
So, number one, among those 30 lakh cases, 20 lakh dog bites were from dogs that were not vaccinated.
Okay.
And that did put a lot of these people under a huge risk. Rabies is actively increasing in the country. Right. As much as I'm into animal welfare, I see what a big problem this is. When the Supreme Court said near schools, near hospitals, near public pathways, they can't be dogs, it is the right of those kids to run around freely again. And hospitals are hospitals. They have to look after the patients. It's the reason why you have to keep that place secure. So, I am completely for welfare, and I care for dogs, and I know this increase, this massive increase in cities, tier 2, 3 especially, is because of waste, number one.
Right.
The places they're being fed irresponsibly. Right? I see how these animal activists and people fighting for the cause were all over the place. If you see my social media, I only talk about responsible feeding, vaccination, sterilization. You can't just feed, you have to look after these dogs. If you really care for these dogs, look after them, make sure they don't have these diseases, right? But that's not what's happening with these polarized views. You know what's happening? People are hating more dogs. Cruelty and violence towards animals is also increasing. And while I was doing all this COVID feeding, I also got into the survey of it to find out how much food needs to go where, just for Bangalore, right? It is really, really hard. These numbers that we are talking about, you don't really know for sure. I think it's increasing a lot more, right?
Yes.
And ABC program, great. For the past 2 decades, the policy, has it been there? Yes. But has it been even 5% effective? No. As someone who runs this foundation, I wanted to do the ABC program. But there are so many middlemen, okay, and municipal commissioners will not take responsibility for a death. But when it comes to money and where the funds goes, everyone has, something to take home there. By the time this fund is actually going to the dogs, I think it's about 5% of the actual funds that goes. Like 15 lakhs is allocated for a particular locality, and they're willing to give 3 lakhs. Now, who's monitoring this? Which is why I don't have an ABC certificate, because I'm not okay with this. So when you go to Netherlands, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, they don't have this problem. Especially in Sri Lanka, you don't find aggressive dogs. Why? Because they followed something. There's another problem with the whole starting, stopping that's been happening for so long. It is the fact that 80% of the dogs, they don't even touch. They go to the 20%. And then they suddenly stop this program. By then, the dogs have increased again. So this is like a humane way that what they've asked for euthanizing. I think that's far better than the verdict that came out August 11, which was scary. We don't have enough shelters.
Yes.
And dogs are very territorial. And you're putting dogs with diseases together. So when a kid now sees a dog, you've already generated a certain kind of fear. The kid is going to run. There is no education that's happening. Community awareness is minus 100, right? Instead of having some programs in apartment complexes, in communities where there are dogs, saying, okay, we are an apartment here. We will collect money. We will look after these dogs. The whole thing of sterilizing them, taking them back, we can do that. That never happened. What did you do instead? People even started throwing their pets away from their homes.
Right.
So I think definitely the media and the government have been completely irresponsible.
Yeah, no, it does, Samyukta. Thanks. But if you had, if there's something for our listeners, like from the society, right, as individuals, as a community,
Right.
one is, of course, awareness, right? As you mentioned, let's say you have the association can come together. You can form, maybe run awareness programs, possibly, right? That the youngsters within that community are also aware of the do's and don'ts, like even how to approach a dog.
Right. That's the most important thing, not to run, not to throw stones at them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And to learn to coexist. So what would your advice be if you had three things to tell society, like to tell what individuals could do? If there are any three things that you would like to advise so that how we can coexist?
Number one will be socially responsible feeding.
Mm-hmm.
I would say just don't put biscuit one day and then disappear, because it expects that from the second person.
Right.
If you do care for animals, just don't feed, vaccinate, sterilize. And number three, keep the people are in your locality, your MPs, your MLAs, your municipal commissioners, ask them these questions. That's what you need to do. Like around your community, make sure that this is the case.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we need to do, and keep questioning them. Right? Like, I think because I run a foundation, it's a little more easier for me. I'm not saying it's the easiest thing to do, but we're not keeping these people who are supposed to be guiding us, who are supposed to be actually responsible, because we do not question them. Right? Who is monitoring these funds? We have 3 crores a month going to Bangalore, right? Where are these funds going? I think we need to ask these questions, and I think that's what we need to do.
Yeah, and I think being informed citizen, I think you bang on there, because only if you're active and informed citizens, we know how much of funds is coming through, because I believe that the union government has stopped funding the program.
So for me also, when I got into animal husbandry service, is when I'm like, oh my God, this is what's there. And something could have been done in the past, like 3 decades, 4 decades.
Right.
Nothing has, because no one questioned. Yeah.
So that's great. Yeah, I think questioning and just being aware, and having that community, getting the community engaged, I think is going to be important, right? Yeah. So we'll move on to the Sarkaar, like more the government and the judiciary part. So I'll just kind of again give a chronological walkthrough of how India has dealt with this issue since independence, because there's sort of a pattern there. And so to understand where we are today with stray dogs and the Supreme Court, we have to kind of go back to 1947. So back post-independence, India actually inherited the colonial approach to managing strays. Back then, municipalities were actually culling them.
Yeah.
They're poisoning them, shooting them, clubbing them, and there's no framework for humane management whatsoever. So the first legal shift came in 1960. That's with the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. It was a landmark law back then, and it was the first time that animals were actually recognized as sentient beings. That's they're capable of pain, and it's not just for dogs. This is for animals in general. This could be for lab experiments, husbandry and all that, all animals. So, but 2 years later, in fact, just right after 1962, the Animal Welfare Board of India was established under that act. But then again, nothing happened. There was no enforcement, was very minimal. So this is again 1962. It took 20 years, if you just fast forward in the 1980s and 1990s, when animal welfare activists were sort of globally also growing, and veterinary science was shifting. And evidence was also mounting that culling simply doesn't work, because dogs also reproduce faster than you can cull them, right?
Yeah.
You kill 100 and then you have 200 that fill the vacuum within a year. So the shift sort of happened in 2001 with the animal birth control rules, what we know as the ABC, animal birth control rules that came in, and this was in 2001. So this was India's first formal policy of sterilization over slaughter.
Right.
This is, and that you spoke quite a bit about that.
Right.
Yeah. But then did anything happen here? Because here again, though the language shifted from stray dogs to becoming street dogs, saying that they also occupy the public spaces, and that local bodies were mandated to run these ABC programs, but largely nothing happened. And as you mentioned, the funds that were allocated to this program, in fact, the union government was allocating up till 2021. So for 20 years they were allocating, but then they stopped in 2021, and it was entirely pushed to the state governments. in the municipalities. And you did mention 3 crores, right?
Yeah.
So this is the problem. So we ended up with 20 years of a policy with no teeth, no money. Dog populations.
There was money,
yeah,
but we don't know where it went.
Not used.
Right.
And then I think in 2023 was when the sort of a shift in the terminology of calling stray dogs community animals. So just to kind of, the narrative shifted a bit, right, towards calling them community animals. And then there were sterilization targets that were set.
Right.
So apparently there's one ABC center mandated per district.
Right.
And then you need to sterilize 70% of the stray population.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 80. I think they brought it down to 70. From what I know, it was 80. Yeah.
And the funding, is it 800 per dog for the full sterilization vaccination procedure?
No. So the government has different funds when they are doing it. When you go to a private hospital, it goes from, like, it starts with 2,000, and it's different for female dogs and male dogs. There are a lot of things. But what's really happening is that they are still showing that 70% to 80% of the dogs are being neutered or spayed by collecting these organ pictures. So what happens, because I've seen this happen, right? What they do is they go to private hospitals, they have some tender with all these people, collect images of the organs, and that's how you show that we have, sterilized these many dogs.
They clip the ear as well, right?
Right. But no clipping is happening because they're collecting images from private hospitals by giving them money. So actual groundwork is not happening. So, okay, let's go back to 1960 and this Animal Cruelty Act. Now, the fine for any abuse or cruelty case is 50 rupees.
That's abysmal. Right?
In Maharashtra, I think Goa, some of these things have changed a bit, but it is of no use. You can't really. So now when it comes back to these results that we're talking about, or this particular policy, nobody seems to care, right? There's a legal loophole also in this space when it comes to numbers. So, which is why they're probably going to go for culling or random harsh verdicts like this. But even that is not going to change things unless. So I think the government first needs to amend this act, the Anti-Cruelty Animal, amend the Prevention of Animal Cruelty Act of 1960. A lot of things has to be done from policy, and legally keep the municipal commissioners, like take their pay away instead of waiting for the victim to fund them after a rabid dog has attacked them. I think they should be held responsible in multiple ways. And when it comes to money, I think their job is taken more seriously. And I feel like there should be a legal way of dealing with this. And so there is, when it becomes personal and is when people react.
Right.
So I think the leaders or these politicians or the ministers who are responsible in making sure this happens, right? We need to keep them accountable. And I think I don't know. I'm trying my bit, but I have a couple of people. But this animal welfare space is like 0.1% of the world's problem.
Exactly.
Even if you see the way the verdict was given at what time, it's just like, I think we know how politics works. They couldn't care less.
Yeah.
So now that you've done this, I think some of us should be able to question. And I think I'm working on that myself. I'm meeting a couple of people, seeing what I can do, because this has worked in Maharashtra and in Goa. And I see why can't we make this as a sample for the rest of the country as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's much of these have become a knee-jerk reaction. And the Supreme Court should not be stepping in, right? It's the policy that has to be put in place. And like, as you mentioned, the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, the PCA Act, is 65 years old. And it's not been amended since.
Yeah, at all.
And
you know what? As a person who's working for welfare with stray dogs, I can get emotional. The verdict by Supreme Court is emotional. It's a reaction.
Yeah.
Without thinking. And now they have such a big problem that people are reacting like this, something is happening, but they have done this. They divided people into haters of animals. Yeah. And they increased violence and cruelty because they don't care about the consequence. Right. No one's holding them responsible, right?
I think it's a very, very valid point, Samyukta. I think the accountability is key here.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd like to segue into the Bazaar bit here, because I think the accountability thing and maybe capturing numbers, data, having some sort of a database will help.
Yeah.
Because then we can have more empirical evidence on both ends, right? On those where the ABC program is being held effectively, and also on the actual numbers in terms of the dog bites and other things. So let's look at the Bazaar or the markets, because obviously all of this doesn't come with, as you mentioned, right? There's money involved, right, to get things done.
Right.
The post-exposure bit, the vaccine costs, I think, between 1,200 and 2,000 per course at the government hospitals. Because again, government hospitals, private, it'll be much.
It's much more.
Much lower. And there is a number of the course.
Yeah.
So the real cost is actually losing. If you look at the practical side of things, right? Lost work days. We have private hospital visits, and with around 3.7 million bites that annually that we are seeing, the public health burden also increases. The public health infrastructure can't hold it, and it's running into thousands of crores, right? So, you've touched upon a few, like in the past, about animal welfare as a public health investment, right? Because the cost of a CNVR, that's the capture, neuter, vaccinate, release cycle per dog, is roughly around 1,500 to 2,000 at scale. But then right now only 800 bucks is being given. Right?
Yeah.
So can you suggest other things that the markets could do, like the Bazaar, where the markets could step in and possibly provide viable interventions for this?
So I think number one thing, since it's such a big problem, especially in cities, to maybe declare this as a national public health issue. It's still not there, right? To make it a very important part of public health.
Right.
So then have these funds for it, and the funds that are kept for ABC implemented. Okay. Number two, like, how does the Praana My Foundation function? I get CSR funds. There are multiple people, CSR, especially like international company that have invested here. They are very interested in the animal welfare space and environment space. And this is an ecosystem. And by the way, increase in dog population is also affecting the wildlife. It's affecting a lot of things. Right? So it's not just a human-animal problem. It is an actual ecosystem problem that we have right now. So this is important. It is a national issue. So the government themselves can keep a larger amount of money in solving this. To people like me, I have Sudhamurthy Trust. I have multiple international companies that are only interested in helping these strays, which is why I am functioning, right? So these private and public partnerships that can happen,
right?
I think you should make way for that. Like even now when I'm doing something, I need all these permissions, some 10,000 things. And it takes forever to get these necessary permissions, sanction or whatever, right? Like everything elsewhere, using AI, using tech, is all automated. I don't have to sit in an office for hours. I have my people waiting and waiting and waiting. For what? When it is so urgent and when there is a solution, what is keeping them like this? So for me, my biggest problem right now is in other countries. I'm not even saying Japan, right? I'm going to other countries where there is like a bird's eye view of this problem, and using AI, they can monitor the whole thing. They know, they can collect sensors, they know, and this microchipping, tags, everything is available. If not you, like the government finds a way of implementing just this microchipping, and then to find out what is really happening. Where is the dog going? Is it being vaccinated? A lot of these issues will actually reduce by about 40% in 3 years.
What's the cost, Samyukta, of the chipping? Because that has been proposed for a few years now.
It has been proposed. It's been happening. They're doing it for wild animals also. Okay. But you know what? They give a lot of money for this drone to find out.
To survey.
It's not really going in there. The problem is, like, it is about 800 to 1,000 rupees, right? I'm talking still for strays. I'm not going into the wildlife space. It's a lot more expensive, of course, the radio collaring and all of this. But it can be cheaper as well if the production increases, right? I'm still talking about what I am doing from Praana. If the government takes it up, it's a lot cheaper. It's not the hardest thing to do. And the government isn't doing it. So I feel like making this a national public health issue, encouraging all these private public partnerships where someone else is putting money and government is making sure the permissions and everything that's required to make it happen, the government does its job. I think that is one way, maybe.
Yeah. I think Lucknow is a genuine success story. You would have heard about.
Yeah.
So they've launched it apparently back in 2019 when the Lucknow Municipal Corporation, they partnered with the Humane World for Animals.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, it is actually global, the HSI, known as HSI earlier.
HSI, yeah.
The city's stray population was estimated to around 95,000 in 2019. But after the intervention, it was, without the intervention, it would have gone up to around 3 lakhs. Like it would have doubled or tripled by 2024. But now 84% of Lucknow street dogs, right? That's over 89,000 of that 95,000 animals have been sterilized and vaccinated. So it sort of surpasses the WHO 70%.
We also don't understand it's really important to have dogs also to reduce the rodent population. So it's not like we are trying to get rid of them, right? They're important. Or else if you like with the garbage that's there and outside restaurants when there's so much
waste management,
you can get plague if there are no dogs around, because our cats, right? Both. So it's not like we're trying to get rid of dogs, but we want healthy dogs, like in Sri Lanka and Bhutan, where there are dogs. But they don't come with diseases, skin infections or rabies, and they are all vaccinated. So I think I really want to get into the Lucknow. I want to know a little more about how it worked. That is what is required.
Yeah, because I think, like as you correctly mentioned, right, the PPP, because the government has limitations in expertise and capacity, right? So that's where the NGO steps in. So when you have the private-public partnerships, and then the funding too is then used more effectively, there's accountability. In fact, that the one point of accountability, I was thinking of maybe something like the insurance and liability bit too can be brought in. The municipalities.
Correct. They have to be liable, right? No, but it's exactly now. I'm still working with the government. But I'm getting funds from these CSR, international companies, all of that. I'm getting grants for the government's work. But I understand a little bit, but but if let me do my job, that's all at least, right?
Yeah. So the boots on the ground, at least the people who are working are passionate. But the other side of the thing, where on the market side, is the pet industry, right? We know that the market has grown double digit, and in fact that has contributed much to the unethical practices. You have puppy or animal mills, and the stray population has not been contained, right? Anything there that you would like to share your 2 cents?
See, there's again. See, I'm very against breeding, of course. Like the whole, I don't understand people who want these breeded dogs in the first place. I think there's something wrong with them, right? When you're getting these huskies and, these special Persian cats from different cold countries.
Yes.
You're almost being inhumane, like already. It's such a stupid thing to do, right? And the Saint Bernards, which don't survive for more than 5-6 years. And especially this year, India has been the hottest.
Just been, yes.
This is not a climate for
them naturally to live in.
It is really like torture for them. Okay. But there's another thing, even if you're saying there should be licensing of certain things. Again, we go back to accountability. Also, what happens is these breeders, I get so many of these cases, it's the most heartbreaking. They get the first litter, the best, most fit pup. They abuse, do all kinds of things for 2 years.
Okay.
The hips are broken, their penis is falling out, they have ticks, they have infections, and that's how they breed. And then they abandon the dogs, like they'll on a moving car. We have footage of all of this, but we can't do anything about it, even though because 50 rupees is what they're asking for the government. So they just throw these dogs on footpath, or they take them away, like in remote villages and forest area, dump the dogs, okay, and they leave, right? We know some of these breeders, as in NGOs have done this research, but we cannot fight this case because it's like we don't have like I said, it goes back to the policy, which doesn't work, right? So somehow this breeding should stop. and the cruelty cases and the legal action for it has to increase. Right? And again, I'm going to keep repeating this. Accountability changes everything.
Absolutely. No, I think
It's just the most disgusting thing. And you know, most of these cases, 9 out of 10, the dogs don't survive. And they do it in such poor conditions. They are also increasing the diseases. Like, you know, the pups get it, and then in 2-3 years, they're infected, and, you know, they pass away. And, you know, this whole thing about birthday gift, Christmas gift, some people are just, because I think also the social media bombardment of cute images of dogs or gift a dog or all these nonsense that you see, like, it's all over the place. Our news feed is fed with these cutest little puppies, and people are not responsible. They see it, and the minute COVID happened, the minute Supreme Court verdict happened, they just throw it. So I feel like this whole thing about this emotion, that this is also a being, and you're responsible for it.
Right.
And I think the more you care for yourself, the environment, automatically you'll care for this, right? Absolutely. I think that care somewhere has to be like given a little more attention on social media and by people who are influencers or celebrities or whatever, so that it touches the right chord and people actually get softer and kinder and don't do these things. I feel that.
No, absolutely, Samyukta. I think, brilliant. I think a few things, just a few quick takeaways from the government side. Of course, amendment of the PCA Act. I think it's about time. There have been a lot of attempts, over the recent years. I think this is really becoming, concern across the board, especially with what the Supreme Court has kind of ordered, right, recently. The second would be from a society perspective, awareness, just being informed citizen, work with the community around you. That would be one key takeaway. Also, the Indie breed is actually the more hardy and the more suitable for our conditions, right? While it's nice to adopt dogs which might have been, deserted and all, but then it's all feeding into that same cycle, right? To the puppy mills and other things. And of course, from the Bazaar side, I think the liability, the way the municipalities can be more liable, the accountability factor that can be brought in, and easily tech with India kind of being up front and center with AI, tech and other things, right? We should kind of bring in ways to monitor, to ensure that accountability is more easily, captured. And I think these things, at least by and large, once we do, right, we'll also learn to sort of live and let live. And that's how we've always been existing in the past. It's just that with recent decisions that were made, it's kind of just creating us versus them sort of a thing, which is actually not fair, right? Yeah. So thank you so much, Samyukta. Any closing thoughts before we end the podcast?
I would like to say that the world, the country, the city, as humans, we're all getting increasingly violent and disconnected. And we are thinking so much and with no heart. I think the solution is right there to actually, including our own politicians, our people around working. We're resorting to violence because there's another grief that you're not able to, with the way the world is increasing, with all the taxes that you have to pay, all of these things.
Limited resources.
Voiceless animals, you see it, most people seem to think that they're powerless and you're showing power there. Instead, I think we should have the strength to question the ones who are in power. I think I would like to say that. Don't throw your anger and your hate on these poor animals.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Because with power comes responsibility.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Samyukta.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to all our listeners, if this episode made you think, please do share it. Because this is a debate where every voice counts, right? Whether you're a dog bite survivor, an animal feeder, or just a policymaker. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
If you liked our show, dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs. Check us out at our Twitter handle @Takshashila INST or our website takshashila.org.in.